Hello arkadaşlarım, welcome to this Turkish recipe episode. Today I'm making this batch of vegan and gluten-free kumpir, otherwise known as Turkish baked potatoes. I only recently discovered what kumpir is. It was actually within the last couple of weeks. I was heading out of town with my family. We made a pit stop at this local dessert and food kind of restaurant cafe place called Mrs. Dessert and Kumpir right here in Minneapolis. My sister Rachel Gore, linked below, her channel is awesome. She knew exactly what kumpir was. My sister told me how she would often have kumpir when she was studying abroad in Turkey one summer during college. So she was able to fill me in all about kumpir, and I cannot believe it's taken me this many years to discover this incredible food. There's 10 ingredients that I'll be using to make these kumpir, but honestly, you could probably have way more ingredients or way less. I decided to just go with the toppings that sounded good to me. So let's go through the 10 ingredients that I'm using to make these vegan and gluten-free kumpir. First up, there's 2 russet potatoes. I've rinsed these off and patted them dry. There's also 1 tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of vegan plant butter, 1/2 cup of vegan mozzarella cheese, 2 of these vegan hot dogs, a few scoops of this red cabbage mix, a couple dollops of this vegan tofutti sour cream, about 10 of these green olives, and finally a couple green onions, otherwise known as scallions. Now let's go through the 7 steps of the recipe. I've linked the recipe that I'm loosely following down in the description box. You'll notice that the recipe isn't a vegan or gluten-free recipe, but it's very easily made vegan / gluten-free. There's just a few substitutions that I'm using. For step number 1, I'll prepare the russet potatoes to bake in the oven. What I'll first do is take a fork and just punch a few holes in each of the potatoes. That'll help the potatoes to bake in the oven and allow for some ventilation so that the middles of the potatoes get cooked as well as the outsides. Then I'll take about 1 tablespoon of the extra virgin olive oil, drizzle it onto the pierced potatoes, and really try to get the olive oil rubbed into the skin. Next, I'll sprinkle about 1/2 teaspoon of the salt over the potatoes. Then I'll wrap them individually in aluminum foil and place them onto a baking sheet, which I have all ready to go. There's just a little bit of parchment paper. For step number 2, I'll place the baking pan with the prepared potatoes on it into my oven and let the potatoes bake for about 1 hour at 400 degrees Fahrenheit. While the potatoes are baking in the oven, I'll move on to step number 3, which is to prepare some of these toppings. I'm gonna slice the green olives since they're whole olives in this jar. I'm also gonna slice the green onion / scallions. And then what I'll do for the vegan tofu dogs is to slice those into little pieces and then saute those in a little bit of olive oil in a skillet on my stovetop. Once the hour is up, I'll move on to step number 4, which is to take the potatoes out of the oven, set the baking pan on top of my stove, and let the potatoes cool in the aluminum foil for about 5 minutes. For step number 5, I'll unwrap each of the baked potatoes. I'll cut them open with a knife, throw in the mozzarella cheese and the vegan butter, and mash that down so that the filling of the potato has a really nice, smooth, creamy consistency. For step number 6, I'll add all the delicious toppings onto the cheesy and buttery potatoes. So those will be the tofutti sour cream, the green olives, the green onions / scallions, the red cabbage mix, and the chopped and sauteed tofu dogs. And finally, for step number 7, I'll give you a close-up of the beautiful, loaded, colorful kumpir. Dig in and let you know what I think. I cannot wait to make these kumpir because this is one of the few recipes I'm doing on here, which is a food that I've never ever made before and I've never actually had in my life. So without any further ado and much anticipation for my first ever kumpir, let's get these potatoes prepped for the oven. Honestly, guys, I think for a very first attempt at a food I only learned about a couple of weeks ago, these kumpir turned out beautifully. I feel like I don't even need to give you much of a description. You can see everything that's going on here. I'm happy with how these slices of tofu vegan hot dog turned out after sauteing for a bit in some olive oil. I just love the color that the red cabbage gives to all of this, and there's also some beet and carrot in that red cabbage mix that I showed you. Luckily, I was able to get the mozzarella cheese nice and creamy and kind of blended into the base of each of the potatoes. So all in all, I am absolutely salivating. Cannot wait to dig into these kumpir. I think I've got everything now on my fork. Cheers. Let's see what all the hype is about. The words that just came up in my mind were from that Rihanna song, Where Have You Been All My Life? It's honestly such a tragedy that I'm discovering this dish on the eve of my 31st birthday. It's terrible. I mean, how did I not even know about this in my 20s? It's crazy. I have the appetite right now that I'm planning on just wiping out one of these clean and then maybe even digging into the second one. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode, and if you've stuck around to the very end, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Let me know what you thought of this recipe, and if you decide to try it out, how it went for you. If you liked this Turkish recipe, then definitely stick around to the very end of this video. I've linked a recipe for mercimek çorbası, which is Turkish red lentil soup. And if you're interested in another potato dish, I recently made some dill vegan potato salad. I'm obsessed with it. I've been making it for weeks now. So check that out. That's also waiting for you at the end of this video. And with that, I'm gonna wrap up this episode and promptly wipe out this kumpir. So take care, my lovely foodies, aka arkadaşlarım. Eat well, and I will see you in the next episode on this channel. Bye!